we elect
You core it so you can
As
make
you
the
call it,
decisions.
the
Yeah.
short answer is
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can still do those first two bits. Right, we're live, so yeah.
Right, well, good evening, councillors, both of you.
Hello.
We are a little thin on the ground, but there's enough of us to have a quorum. I'm hopeful that perhaps Councillor Davies and your Councillor Chessel will make it. The first item on the agenda is to elect a chair. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I would like to nominate Councillor Chapel. I would also like to nominate Councillor Chapel.
On the basis there's nobody left to vote against that, I think I just declared myself elected. Thank you very much. We have left the post of deputy chair vacant previously. However, rather unusually, twice in the last 4 meetings, I've ended up for one reason or another not being here. And I have to say that today was a bit touch and go, because I had to attend a funeral this afternoon, hence the black tie. So it might be prudent to elect a deputy. I don't know, have we had any nominations in advance?
No, we haven't.
In which case, Councillor Jones
Sorry.
reflect being a deputy to myself.
Myself, yes. Yeah.
Right.
One hand.
Well, rather similarly to last time, since there's only two of us here, and we've just both nominated and seconded.
So you've nominated Luke and Jamie's.
Jones,
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Well done.
thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Right, well, that brings us on to apologies for absence. Now, the only apology we've actually got is David
Dave Fuller, yeah.
Albeit we seem to be two councillors down as we speak.
I'll just check my emails again just to check somebody didn't email later on. No, no other apologies.
Now, well, we'll move on. If either of our missing councillors attend, I'll just have to catch them. The next item is representations from interested parties, and none have been notified to us for tonight. Which brings us on to declarations of interests. Does anybody have any disclosable pecuniary interest in any application on our agenda?
No.
No. Does anybody wish to declare any other interest in relation to anything on the agenda?
No. No.
It's extremely tenuous, but I suppose as my wife is a member of Andrew Tennis Club, I will mention it. And she's not on the committee,
I've shot a waitress.
but she seems to spend an awful lot of time there. Yeah, well, exactly, how far do you go? The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. This was a length I happen to be aware of Dale. So present were councillors Arnold, Chesser, Davis and Jones. Have you, the two of you seen these minutes? Do you approve them?
Yes, I
Do you
do.
want to propose them?
I'll propose them.
Change.
I'll second them.
Right, and I'll sign them. Done. The next set of application, or next matters are the various applications we have to consider tonight, starting with the aforesaid Alfred Tennis Club in St Peter's Road. I suppose it's also technically possible that you ought to declare a collective interest, because of course who's the landlord of the Alfred Tennis Club? The Alfred Town Council. As a matter of interest, do we know if the tennis club asked us as their landlords for consent?
Yes, it came to estates.
I'm assuming.
Did it come to estates or did it come to planning when you weren't here? It came to one of them, and who the councillors present said, let them go and ask for their planning permission, and then we'll have a look at it on, you know, with proper
We'll judge it on
plans.
its merits, so to
Yeah.
speak. I suspect we're not going to have too much difficulty with this. This is to provide an additional disabled access to the current one. Clubhouse itself was built 40 years ago, and whilst you can get in as a disabled person, presumably using a wheelchair from the front door, what you can't do is access the club currently through the side door. So the proposal is to construct a timber deck to the side of the clubhouse, which will provide a level threshold to enter, and we get rid of the existing steps and the raised slab area, and essentially create a ramp. Broadly speaking, that's it. I mean, I've given a little bit more detail in the notes I've prepared for councillors. And if anybody wants to see it, obviously we can look at it. But I do actually wonder whether this is something of a foregone conclusion, because I can't see any basis on which we would wish to object as landlords.
No.
As a council viewing a planning application, which a decent human beings, possibly in that order.
I think anything that supports disabled access to our sporting offering in the town has got to be supported, doesn't it? And I've seen the images; it looks very tasteful and safe. So I think I'll support it. Absolutely, completely agree.
But it is possible for us to actually indicate a positive
Yes.
support for an application, and I think tonight doesn't happen that often, but I think it is actually supported. Which brings us on to North Street. This is a bit more interesting. Councillors will be familiar with these premises because it's the old Owen and Hartley shop. And above the old Owen and Hartley shop is some living accommodation. Now the applicants say they have no idea when the living accommodation was last used as living accommodation. I've been in the town 40 years, I don't remember it being used as living accommodation, but I'm not saying it wasn't at some point, but it would, I think, be many years ago. So essentially, the idea is to, first of all, create a clear delineation between the shop at ground floor level and the residential premises. And one way of doing that is to create a staircase that enables you to have access. The shop and residential accommodation, both 62 square metres. There's the shop. It's come up. There's the design and access statement, which is actually quite a useful document, although it's relatively difficult to read the text from here. In terms of exterior appearance, the only real alteration is that there's going to be a new door into a new entrance lobby. It'll be a traditional timber frame and door. There is an existing, what we describe as a roll-out canopy shade, and then we'll get rid of that, but replace it with something not dissimilar, but modernised. And the reason for that, they say, is that actually the shop premises, which are fairly small and have quite a large expanse of glass, get jolly hot in there.
Do we know what it's going to be?
I have to say, I have no idea. In terms of, I've put the name of the applicant on there as before.
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't know the applicant.
Is it Robinson? I can't remember.
It's Robinson, yes.
I think I've heard it might be a salon.
Okay.
Right.
How true that is, I don't know, but yeah.
Even if it were, and even if we thought, oh my goodness, haven't we got quite a lot of salons in there?
Yeah.
The reality is, that's not the issue.
No, I know.
So we've got those ground floor alterations, and then internally we have, as I say, this new staircase put in a little lobby area created with some internal partitioning. Some new partition walls to create a small downstairs office for the shop, and indeed to enable there to be a small WC downstairs. And upstairs, you'll end up with a shower room and bedroom at one end, and above the shop, the sort of primary shop area, if I can call it that, a living and kitchen area.
Right.
Clearly, as the design and access statement says, it's a building in need of a certain amount of renovation, shall we say. I don't think a lot's been done to it over the last few years of operation. So bringing it back into beneficial use as a shop or similar, and if we end up with a change of use, we end up with a change of use to consider in due course. But bringing it back sounds like a good idea. If there is an issue for me in this at all, it's that if you think about where it is, and you think about the fact that there is absolutely zero parking associated with this development, whoever lived in the one-bedroom flat will have to park probably in the long-stay car park on the face of it, because it's difficult to see where else they could lawfully park. Now, we had some issues, you may recall, when at the bottom of Jericho, we had a planning application for Lawn House. That they wanted to convert into a B&B. And I can't remember the number of bedrooms that it was going to have, but it was a number of bedrooms. And there was a concern that the on-site parking was extraordinarily limited and simply wouldn't have serviced that. As you know, in fact, I think that application was ultimately withdrawn, presumably because the funds had some other issues around it. When I looked at the portal, and I must admit this was now a few days ago that I put this together, there were no comments on there, including no comment from Highways. But it may be that Highways will have a bit of a concern. On the other hand, that living accommodation was living accommodation previously. And clearly, as living accommodation, it didn't have any associated parking. And presumably, it worked. Now, you may say, very different days, very different scenarios with the amount of cars around and the amount of parking, etc. in the town. But that would be my one worry about that being part residential.
I suppose if you're going to, the same problem would persist if you're going to turn it into an office space as well, where the workers park. So could we really say that it's doomed to remain derelict because no one can park anywhere?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, don't you? Because yes, it's slightly different, because I suppose if it was operating as an office, it might open for 6 days a week, it might open for 5, it would probably be open from roughly 9 to roughly 5. But people have still got to park during an 8-hour period. They can't lawfully park anywhere but the long stay. But it did, of course, encourage people who are parking for work all day to go and park. But it's a fair point.
I'd rather see it used and lived in and earning some own money rather than being stuck in the past, if you like. So,
yes. And I suppose we're making an assumption that whoever lives in there will actually own a motor vehicle and try and put it somewhere. It could be that they own a bicycle and cycle around and go on it.
So I'd have to say my gut instinct on this, but I haven't reasoned about it as well, as I'm not against it. I think I would support what they're suggesting.
What have you got?
The only thing that I think in principle I agree. The only other thing would be, in terms of the work that's being done, how is that going to be carried out in terms of?
There isn't, as part of that application, any sort of construction and management plan.
Okay.
I'm assuming that the actual works probably won't involve a protracted period of work. Obviously, there are works that will have to be done, and presumably a works van, etc., is going to be needed. It may be a fair point to simply say that we think that there should be a condition of an agreed construction management plan, given the constraints of where it is. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
And it may be, and like both of you, I think, I'd be slightly sad if this parking issue scuppered the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I rather feel that if it's going to get scuppered over that, I'd almost rather it was highways who kicked up the fuss about it for once rather than us. I mean, parking is often a bugbear of ours. But
Is it a listed building?
well, I must admit,
Or is it?
my instinct was to say, I'm sure it
It's in the area?
may be simply because of where it is. It's obviously in the conservation area.
Yeah.
Then I thought about the building and I thought, I'm not actually sure that there is anything of any huge architectural or historical merit in that building.
Because I noticed.
So far as I'm aware, it's not listed. There's certainly no listed building consent sought. But I did actually need to check it out for sure and make sure it wasn't listed.
There's lots of phrases like you can carefully remove timber, etc. And I'm sure it's just.
You're quite right. That sort of struck me as well. It's the sort of stuff you write when you're working on a listed building.
Yeah.
But
It may just be simple wood rather than anything special.
yeah, I suppose the only thing is if it does transpire it's a listed building, then it is going to get knocked back because I'll have to go for listed building consent and we'll get a second crack at looking at it in that light.
So are we actually saying there's not really enough information of this and we need more?
I don't know, because I think we have to treat it at face value. They haven't put in a listed building consent. I think therefore we're entitled to assume it doesn't require it. It's simply a property in the conservation area. Given what they're planning to do, I don't have a problem with it from the conservation area point of view. So I think the issue I thought of was the parking, but I think that Councillor Arnold's point about a construction management plan is a good one.
Yes.
So I'm inclined to say no objection, provided that there is a planning condition for a suitable construction management plan given the location of the premises.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, it's not a listed building.
Right. I can't believe the yours. Let's put C in page numbers. Right, Waitrose. This is interesting. I tried to rack my brains about the history of this application and the Town Council's attitude to the original plans for the construction of Waitrose. And the short answer is I couldn't remember it, and I decided that I wasn't going to start trawling through hundreds of pages of stuff to try to find the answer. But what is clear is that there is a current condition, actually technically there are two relevant conditions, conditions 16 and conditions 20 on the planning permission, which appears to go back to 2012. And that imposed a restriction on the opening hours. Now, I don't know why I'm going to type this, but I've just looked at it again and realised that what I put in terms of current opening hours and bumpers, somehow I went wrong. It should say 0600 to 2200, in other words 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Rather than 200 to 220, which was a bad day and I didn't notice. And that was there, I am pretty sure, because I think, I'm right in saying that as a town council we worried, bearing in mind our involvement with the project, because of course the car park is actually ours. We own the car park.
I
As
don't
well
know.
as that, it services.
I didn't know that.
Waitrose. And I think we were pretty sensitive to the fact that it was being developed in an area in which there were residential properties, and we were worried about traffic coming down East Road, all the hours God sends, delivering to Waitrose. I think we probably wanted as a town council there to be some conditions, and certainly there were, which had fairly generous opening hours, bearing in mind that we were talking about every day of the week between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. But it did mean that there wouldn't be any overnight deliveries. And there was also an associated, if you like, operating plan with it. And what the application is designed to do is to get rid of the restriction on delivery hours altogether.
Right.
And therefore to get rid of the servicing management plan that was associated with that. And clearly that would mean, potentially, that there could be deliveries even in the night. The documentation that's been submitted seems to suggest that Waitrose would have 3 deliveries Monday to Saturday and 1 delivery, as per now, on a Sunday.
Okay.
But of course, just because that's what they're saying now, if there are no restrictions, they could have 20 deliveries
Yeah.
Monday to Saturday and 25 on a Sunday.
What's the delivery? Is that one lorry? Or
In effect,
correct.
yeah.
3 lorries?
So if you've got 3 deliveries, you've got 3 quite substantial lorries having to.
I mean, is it, or is it 2 lorries each? So 6 lorries, you know.
I think it's a single lorry
Okay.
from memory from what I read. Now they put in some documents to support what they're doing, including the noise assessment.
Now, I don't seem to be able to open it here. Have I got the number right? 22000699.
Yeah.
It's
Not finding it.
yeah. Are you putting VAR?
Not
Because if you put FUL or something,
All right, I'll try.
No, if you should find it just with the numbers.
but in
Yeah,
theory,
it's not liking it.
yes, but don't forget that you need the / after 22.
Mm.
On the agenda, it's published without that.
Oh, is it?
Which, if you're following the agenda
That
as
makes
opposed to my notes, you may find you can't access it. I certainly
Oh,
could
yeah,
access
sorry.
it last week and did.
Slash.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Again, personal view, I'm not sure they've made out a case that convinces me that it is necessary to remove a restriction that I think was there for the amenity of local residents. And I'm trying to say, no, it should stay as it is. But that's a personal view.
I know we're sort of the competition, the co-op, so I know that we have very set hours on when we can and cannot accept a delivery. So I don't
Yes.
see.
Just forget what I said about the car park for a minute.
I was sitting here thinking about that. I was
yeah,
thinking,
I don't know, I'm in a different place. This morning. Of course, it's the co-op car park.
No.
I was doing a mental skip.
I was stood there and I thought, oh, I don't know this.
So yeah, just forget that.
Yeah, we have restricted hours on when we can and cannot accept a delivery, and that is, I would say, enforced quite firmly. So it's I don't know, you know, I don't want to be biased, but at the same time, it's there for a reason, you know, and that Waitrose is probably similar in terms of local residents being near. So if I were to base it on that, I would say that it, you know, there shouldn't be an exception made, or if you like. That would be my view.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I suppose there are rather more residential properties affected by the co-op because you've kind of got longer to go to drive past.
Yeah, and it's right
Number
round,
of
so
them.
yeah.
Because if you like, if you're coming past Waitrose at that top end, you've got
That's
to go all the way down. But there are still a number of residential properties, including, of course, properties on the other side of the whole thing at Blackpool Lanes.
Yeah.
As
And
well.
I'm sure at 10, 11, 12 p.m, you know, lorries quite loud, so you're gonna.
Yeah,
notice
Councillor
it.
Jones.
I was going to say that there'll also be more properties being built at the petrol station, won't there, as well, so just increase the number of them driving past. I think I'd accept it if this is a large out-of-town Tesco's on an A road, so Waitrose on an A road. No, it's not on dual carriageway. It's Waitrose in a very privileged position in a really, really special place, and that comes with a cost, which is that we don't want to be woken up by lorries. So I think, you know, it would have to, I don't agree that we should have burn the timings there.
I think the consensus probably is why should it be changed and potentially inconvenience residents? Having said that, there were no comments on the portal when I looked, but it was,
There are four
I think, something like Thursday last week. If you've got them handy, is there anything that
I can't open them sadly, you can just see there's four.
So is it one of those
you
situations?
might be able to get them up on
Yeah,
there?
log in.
See if we can get off that. Go on to.
Scroll up at the top.
Up.
There you go, comments four.
There you go. Okay, you're on there for. I mean, the only one that I mentioned was the police safety.
So
Oh, I see.
three-
I was watching this.
three consultative and just one public.
Let's see what we've got.
What's
Doesn't
it
seem to
say,
be anything
please?
there, just
Please take document. Nothing there.
documents tab.
There's no document tabs.
Files to submit.
We had this problem the other week, didn't we, where we couldn't see any documents at
Mm.
all, so whether it's a glitch in the system. See, it's got the,
Right, so environmental protection, transport. Yeah, so what's environmental protection? I mean, it's interesting to say, so I'd like to see within the service management plan and procedure for, but one of the applications is to get rid of the service
Yeah.
management plan
Yeah.
altogether.
I don't see it significantly different today.
And having said there will not be an increase in the number of deliveries, that's based on Waitrose's current assertion, but once you remove the condition, it seems to me that they can do whatever they like.
I know from a shop point of view, if that was the same in the co-op, they wouldn't think twice. If that rule's gone, you're going to get deliveries at any time.
Mm.
You know, they wouldn't even think about that. So, yeah.
Well, I get the view that we object, and let's see what NNC make of it. Right, This one is not particularly complicated. 20 Creed Road, it's a ash tree subject to a tree preservation order, but it's not a fell, it's essentially tree husbandry, reducing the crown and basically taking out branches that, on the face of it, the tree man, this time Christopher Bennett from Inspiring Trees, feels need to go. Seems to me if we followed our normal procedure, we wouldn't be objecting to it.
I don't object.
No objection.
No objection.
Right. 17 Potterstock Road. We have, of course, recently had the planning application for 19 Potterstock Road, the former Pembroke House. So this is a property that adjoins that. It's currently a 2-storey, 4-bedroomed house, all 4 bedrooms being at first floor level, and with a semi-detached but single garage. It's obvious actually on reading the papers that support the application that the applicant has a disabled family member, and so the works that are being done enable that person to be accommodated at ground floor level with his or her own bedroom and adjoining bathroom area. And what might be called a kind of service stairway to assist accessing that part.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think, in a sense, the fact that that's the background is something that we need to, or should in fact, be taking into account in our deliberations. Essentially, we just look at this as an application to extend. Current property has what I described as grey buff, fair-faced brickwork, which is not easy to do. A roof of interlocking concrete tiles, and where there is flat roofing, it's mixed felt. Essentially, the extension will be timber clad with window, roofing basically, again, by interlocked concrete tiles, but instead of felting the flat roof, we have a GRP membrane. Garage will have concrete plain tiles. At ground floor level currently, you've got a kitchen, a utility room, a WC, a living room, a dining room, a sunroom. My description, because it doesn't actually say on it what it's used for, but it looks as if that's what it is. And another sitting room. So a lot of accommodation downstairs. Changed around, it would still have a kitchen, it would still have a utility room, it would still have a WC. It would have a room that they describe as a music room, it would have a separate dining room, a sitting room, and, as I mentioned earlier, a bedroom and a bathroom. At first floor level, there are currently 4 bedrooms and a bathroom and a separate WC, so all 4 bedrooms sharing a separate, if you like, bathroom. Under this proposal, there will be 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1 with an ensuite, a combined bathroom WC, so in fact now 2 lots of bathrooms upstairs, and what is described as, quote unquote, a study. Kind of go into a little bit more detail about the construction and so on in the notes that I prepared for you. And the applicant's application documentation says, well, look, the property needs some modernisation, particularly so far as thermal efficiency is concerned. So one of the things will be they will put in external insulation then put the timber cladding over it. Although in some places, there are some internal insulation in other parts of the ground floor, and all the single glazed steel windows would be replaced by 4-faced double glazed UPVC windows. Doors basically similar, except the front door, which would be an oak-faced solid timber door. What I found slightly difficult about looking at it was that, okay, it's a 4-bedroomed property in the sense that it has got 4 rooms designated as bedrooms in its new guise, which is no different to what it's got now. But of course it has an upstairs quote-unquote study, which could be used as a 5th bedroom, and it's got a downstairs music room, which I suppose could equally be used as that. Against that, if you think about what I read out earlier, it had 2 kind of living room spaces downstairs and all the rest of it. Essentially, it's already quite a significantly sized house. This makes it even bigger with what I might describe as a purposeful adaptation for the applicant. In terms of parking requirements, if I'm right, we might want to look at, because I don't think that those pictures actually help us with parking. I'm just trying to remember. A site plan might be better. So yes, so you can see there, you've got a completely detached garage. You've got a turning area, and the way that they're seemingly configured, plenty of space for parking. So even if this increased to 5/6 bedrooms, it could probably accommodate it and still comply with the relevant highway standards on parking. I have to say, looking at it, I didn't see anything about it that would cause me any particular concerns at all.
I agree.
Yeah, I unfortunately, I think I disagree. Simple question, can one of them not be that they already have remodified?
Well, can we get the existing floor plans? Just have a look at that. Once we're doing that, what's your thinking about what it is about extending the property is worrying you? It's quite a lot, it's a big enough plot to accommodate it without apparently impacting neighbouring properties.
I mean, I know we. I'm trying to word this.
Yeah, so,
Well,
so in terms of the current property, we've got a utility room there, separate WC over here. This is a bit of an entrance lobby here. Kitchen area here.